Step 5. Make the money back. The next morning I asked Tina about her plan. At the end of the day, she said, I'll tell you at the meeting when I tell everyone else. Meeting? Why can't you tell me now? I wanted to know, but Tina just smiled. After lunch, Tina and I went outside to play. Our house is at the end of the block. Amber and Lydia lived down next door to us. Next to them lived Betty and Booker. Betty is 8, Booker is 4. The Greens live next to Betty and Booker. There are so many people in the Green family, it's hard to count them all. Once I thought there were only 5, but then 2 cousins moved in from Detroit. Now there's 7. They all have round faces with big teeth, even the cousins. And they all have the same laugh. They also have the same names that begin with G. Next to the Greens lived Mrs. Pyle. Mrs. Pyle lived by herself. She always complains when the green soccer ball rolls into her yard. She also complains about the noises when we play in the Greens' backyard, which is most every day. She doesn't like animals much either. Each of the Green children has a pet. Mrs. Pyle complains about the pets. Pauline lives next to Mrs. Pyle, besides Amber, Pauline is my best friend on the street. She has a great babysitter named Candy, who is a really cool teenager. Pauline is the only kid on my block who has ever been inside Mrs. Pyle's house. She says that Mrs. Pyle has a cute little canary named Tweety. She's the only kid who has ever seen him. Lena and Lana live in the last house. Now, every house on our side of the street is filled with kids, except for Mrs. Pyle's. Almost every other day, someone on our street will call a block meeting. Then, we all meet at the Greens' backyard because it's the biggest. Tina called a meeting for today, and the word spread quickly. The Greens' house is big enough and about 100 years old. It used to be a school, and the backyard used to be a playground. At the end of the Greens' long backyard is a merry-go-round. It's the best thing on the block. When it's whirling fast, it's the greatest feeling in the world. But today, when it's time for the block meeting, no one rode on the merry-go-round. Everyone just sat on the ground and listened to what Tina had to say. When the meeting was ready to start, Tina cleared her throat. Everyone got quiet. A kid I know lost some money that didn't belong to her. If she doesn't get it back by Monday, she could go to jail, Tina said. That's dumb. They don't put kids in jail, George Green said. Jail? I had never thought of jail. I hope George knew what he was talking about. Suddenly, I pictured myself behind bars, eat pancakes with no syrup or honey. Just cold, dry, the stick-in-the-throat pancakes with only water to wash them down. Who lost the money? I faintly heard Gregory Green ask. Someone everyone knows, said Tina. How'd she lose it? Asked Gregory. None of your business. But I have a plan to make the money back. I need everybody's help. We'll help, Gregory said. After a minute, what's your plan? Tina smiled. Lemonade. Willie and I are going to have a lemonade stand to help the person who lost their money get it back. We want everyone to say that they will buy some. That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, said George Green. Tina, is that the big plan you've been thinking of all day? What kind of plan is that? I yelled at. I couldn't believe what Tina had just said. No one sells lemonade anymore, said Candy, who was watching Pauline. Plus, who's going to buy lemonade from kids on the street when they could get it at home, asked George. Well, it will work, Tina said with a smile. Maybe it will, said Amber. We said we'd help, so we will, said Gregory quietly. Tina and her friend need help. It's the spirit of the block to help people out who live here. At that moment, I thought Gregory was the smartest, kindest kid I've ever known in my life. Are you sure it's gonna work, Tina? I asked her that night before we went to sleep. Don't worry, Willie, Tina said. I don't always keep my word. I was biting my tongue really hard. Sometimes it's best to keep your thoughts to yourself.